Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining another episode of the Educational Leadership Podcast. We have another very special guest. Before we introduce our guest, we do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Ideal Impact. Ideal Impact's giving away hundreds of millions of dollars to public education in the form of a free gift. So if your district needs unrestricted funds, reach out to Ideal Impact. Okay, today we have a superintendent from the great state of Oklahoma. As you know, we're interviewing people from Texas and Oklahoma. We'll be expanding more in the future, but we're starting with the best states first. Just kidding. Okay, so we have Dr. Eichelberger from Piedmont Schools. Dr. Eichelberger, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Gary.
Absolutely. And just so our listeners get to know you a little bit, could you share a little bit about your background and kind of the profile of your district?
Sure. So I was a high school chemistry teacher, and then I wanted to get into elementary education. So I went back and got my master's degree and was a high school principal for 4 or 5 years, and then an elementary principal for a few years. Decided that I wanted to work with kids in poverty, so I moved to a district here in Oklahoma City, Putnam City. 75% poverty. We had 95% poverty in the school that I worked in. Learned a lot in that district, and then I decided I wanted to be a superintendent. Spent some time in 6 years in Bethany, which is right here, a suburb of Oklahoma City, and then now I'm in my second year as the superintendent out in Piedmont.
Awesome, awesome. And uh, before you got into education, were you from the Oklahoma area originally?
Yes, sir. I'm a Western Oklahoma guy, and I grew up on a farm and actually farmed for 10 years after I got out of high school before. So I was a late starter. I didn't start back to school till I was about 27 to college.
Awesome, awesome. Well, tell us about the district a little bit. What's the size roughly, and kind of just for our listeners to understand where's the location in the state and that sort of thing.
So the city of Oklahoma City is kind of right in the center of the state, and we are northwest of Oklahoma City. We're a suburb. Yukon is directly west, Mustang is southwest, and we are northwest. Edmond is another very large school district, and they're due north of Oklahoma City. So there's a lot of pretty good population of large school districts. So some of the bigger ones are 20,000 kids. We're 5,000 kids. So in comparison, we're not as large as some of the big ones here in the metro area, but we are um, decent size. We're 6A, which is the largest school size. We're in that 6A zone.
Got it, got it. Very cool. One thing that's funny about public education is people think they have it all figured out, right? They think it's all public education. It's all the same, right? But it's funny, we talk about different things on the podcast. We have I want to say we're over 100 episodes now with superintendents around Texas and Oklahoma. And when you listen to these episodes, you hear different perspectives. You hear different backgrounds, different perspectives. And sometimes topics come up where people have different opinions on it. And it could be on funding, it could be on a lot of different things. It could be on the state, it could be, how things are managed. Um, it could be on school vouchers. There's a lot of different perspectives, and it's interesting. A lot of times, the perspectives of the superintendents align with the community. So I'm just kind of curious. Anything you're passionate about in public education right now? Anything on your radar where you're like, you know what, we really need to focus on this because it's going to be great in the future, or maybe it's a bottleneck that we need to focus on, or kind of what's on your radar these days, something you're passionate about.
We're going through a lot of the same things that Texas is going through. The thing where Texas has an advantage is they spend more per pupil than Oklahoma does, and that allows them to pay their teachers and administrators and everybody else in the district more, and that's how you get really quality people. We've lost a lot of very good teachers here in Oklahoma across the line to Texas. So I would really we're always trying to get the state of Oklahoma to provide more, whether it's directly into the formula, whether it's in for teacher salary, however that comes across. It takes a lot of money. The insurance, just to insure all the buildings in our district, is just going up, like crazy. We're right in Tornado Alley, so that we have every year we have houses for sure that are hit by tornadoes, and very often schools. We had Sulphur was hit last year, so they're in the rebuilding process. I think we need to work on getting education funded in the state of Oklahoma to the level that it needs to be. But we also have to do some other things. There needs to be a return on investment for those patrons, those parents. And so I think what I would say I'm really passionate about is the professional development of our teachers, our staff members, and our administrators. We should all strive to be the best, and we should all be in a continuous mode of professional improvement. And so it doesn't matter how good you are. And, in Texas and Oklahoma, we've got some really great teachers. We've got some really great administrators, but we can all get better. You look at the very best. This may be a little bit of a tender subject, but Luka Doncic he's a great player, but he can get better. So can LeBron James. Is at the twilight of his career. They always practice to get better. And so I would like to see our profession really embrace professional development. And many, I'd say most educators do. We just have to know that the way to become a better teacher and administrator for kids is to improve ourselves.
That makes perfect sense. And I think everybody would agree that the role of a teacher is important, right? It's a very important role. I'm curious, and maybe this has already been, maybe there's something in place already. Are there obviously some teachers perform better than other teachers, right? I think it's a fair statement, just like, any athlete or any job or anything, some do better than others. Um, are there any incentive, and this kind of aligns with professional development, it aligns with, performance. Are there any incentives for teachers that perform? Like, there's got to be some all-stars out there. Do they get paid more than just a teacher maybe that doesn't perform as well? And how do you measure that? I don't know. Is it a test score, or is it a state test score, or what? But I don't know. What are your thoughts around that?
We're in the infancy in Oklahoma in working on bonuses for teachers that do well. And we don't want it to be, we're still trying to figure out what that looks like. The state of Oklahoma has set aside a certain amount of money, up to 10% of the teachers in your district can qualify for this bonus. And they're letting the districts figure out how we measure what good teaching or somebody that deserves a bonus. And what we're still not there yet, but we're talking with our teachers. We want to partner with our teachers in that, and not have just a few administrators making decisions about that. We want it to be transparent. We want to make sure that our teachers are engaged and know before we start what it is that they have to do in order to be, in that elite group, that top 10% that would get a bonus of some sort. Some districts have this year and last year have started doing that. We're kind of learning from each other, and so I don't think anybody's perfected it, but we plan to work with our teacher union this summer and try to come up with a plan that teachers feel is fair, administrators feel is fair. We want our teachers to have the very best and the most that we can give them. We also want them to strive to be the best. So we don't want one of the problems with that, Gary, is that collaboration in education is incredibly important. And so if you start getting one teacher that is in competition with another teacher, they might not be willing to share everything that they know and do. as well, because they want that monetary gain. So we want to set up a system that allows them to um, share those very best practices, and still whoever is deemed the best at the end gets that bonus.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense because I think if we could all look back to when we were kids and we remember probably a teacher that made a huge difference in our life. Like everybody's got that teacher, right? And then we could probably really think back to a teacher that we probably could have picked a different class to be in and not be in that particular class for whatever reason. Um, so it does make sense the performance side of things, and I get what you're saying on the culture side as well. Could you see it in the corporate world as well? Because some companies, they're 100% commission, right? And I've seen cultures like that where if it's 100% commission, it's very competitive, and you almost get team members that are working against each other instead of working. But there's a sweet spot where you have a certain level of salary plus some incentives where, yes, everybody's working together, but they're also trying to be, they want to exceed, they want to win. Um, and so that makes sense because I imagine some teachers, they would, some that are very motivated, wanting to develop themselves, if they happen to be paired up with someone, just human beings that maybe there's somebody that doesn't care about that too much, but they're getting paid the same. I could see where that, they could say, well, what's the point, right? What's the point of going above and beyond? Could happen. At least that you see that happen in other professions. Teachers could be different, but um, yep.
You bring up a good point, something else that I really feel is important in education, and it is the culture of our buildings, the culture of our district. In Oklahoma, we have a teacher shortage, and so with 500 districts, 512, I think, districts, some as big as 40,000 and some as little as maybe 400. We're all fighting for great teachers. And so I think one of the things that, or what we are um, going all in on, is that if we provide a culture for our teachers and our staff members and our parents and our kids that says, we care about you, we're going to do everything we can for you. We want to create an environment where you want to come to work, you want to be good to kids, you want to be the best that you can be, and you want to provide, a great education. Um, we feel like we're doing that, where it's a continuous process. You don't just create a good culture and then it's always there. It's like a relationship. You have to continue to attend to your culture. We give culture surveys twice a year to our teachers to find out, and teachers and staff, to find out what it is that they like about our district, what it is that they'd like to see changed, because it's really about all of our opinions, not just opinions of the people who happen to be the leaders.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense as far as the culture goes, and we've had some interesting conversations around culture, around districts, and obviously culture, goes a lot deeper than just academics. Just learning facts and figures and memorization and that sort of thing, and it's the interactions you have with each other, and the students pick up on it too, right? The body language, the tonalities, all of that stuff.
I'll
Um,
give you an example of how students pick up on culture. One of the things that is an expectation in our district, 5,000 kids, 400 teachers, is that every teacher between each class, middle school, high school, and elementary, every time kids walk in the door, that the teacher stands at the door and they do three things. They make eye contact, they give them a kind word, they say, hi, how you doing? I'm glad you're here today. And they give them a kind touch. So a pat on the back, a knuckle bump, a high five. But it's that little couple of seconds of interaction with each kid every day. So in our middle schools and high schools, we've got our kids that are getting that 7 times a day. In our elementaries, those kids are probably in and out of the class 4 or 5 times. They also have a specials teacher and a teacher for recess and lunch. And so what we want the culture that we want our kids to be part of is that they know that their teachers love and care about them, and that they have a personal interaction with them multiple times a day.
You mentioned the word love there, and some people feel like that's kind of a touchy-feely thing. Now, we actually had a consultant on one of our podcasts. I think it was called Lovescaping or Love, but it's all about creating that culture of love, like loving your neighbor, right? Um, and that is so critical. I think that's so important, and that's great that your district is doing that and kind of developing those bonds between, the students. And because at the end of the day, we can all do tasks, right? We can learn tasks to do, and but if we don't care about each other and we're not trying to really help each other, what's the point, right? Because I mean, I think that's why businesses started. When you graduate and you go into the workforce, businesses are all about helping each other. At least I think that's where it all started at some point. Y-
You're exactly right, Gary. There are lots of different types of love, and we talk to our teachers about um, building strong, appropriate relationships with kids. We're not talking about a love like between a boyfriend and a girlfriend. We're talking about the kind of love that a parent would have for a child. And I actually did my dissertation when I worked on my doctorate on the cost benefit analysis of the teacher student relationship. And in fact, there is a cost for these relationships. Sometimes it might be money, because a lot of teachers in the world take out of their own pocket to buy kids, pens or pencils or something that they need, because it's more difficult to go through the proper channels to get that. But the there's also the emotional toll that when you have kids that go through so much trauma, and maybe are from um, poverty, the just knowing about what these kids go home to every night sometimes just wears on our teachers. There's a lot of positive things about it, and the positives far outweigh the negatives. When a teacher and a student feel like they have a strong, appropriate relationship, a kid will do for that teacher. They will try for that teacher to do things in a calculus class or an English class that they wouldn't try for somebody who they don't have a good relationship with. So relationships are good, but they are there's a cost benefit there.
Yeah, and I appreciate you pointing out the difference in love, because when you say that word, people, they perceive it differently. And you're absolutely right. The definition that we're talking about is caring, respect, respect for other human beings. And I definitely see what you're saying. I've experienced it, decades ago, teachers that want to help. They go above and beyond. They truly care about your success, and they're not just going through the motions of presenting material. They're actually, truly trying to help.
I do classroom management workshops all across the state of Oklahoma for teachers and administrators, and we talk about that. We spend a lot of time talking about how important the relationship between the student and the educator is, because they have to know they care, that we care about them before they'll really engage with us. And some of these kids are working through some really tough things. But one of the things that I do with the attendees of my workshops is have them think back to their favorite teacher and how that teacher made them feel. And then can they remember a specific lesson that they taught that was just so meaningful? Or was it more about the feeling, how they felt? Nobody can remember the lesson about their favorite teacher. They can't remember this one amazing algebra lesson, but they can remember how the teacher made them feel about school and about learning and about life. And that is how we get kids to learn at high levels.
Yeah, yeah, and at such an impressive, impressionable age too, that can truly transform some. I think about my teacher, Adon Pantoja. He's no longer with us, but he was the band director, right, in middle school, and he was a tough guy. Like uh he didn't mess around. It's like, okay, it was all about work, all about business, but he showed he cared so much. And he would be talking to you, and if he was impressed, you hit the expression on his face would be like, is he smiling? I don't know if he's smiling or not. It was like a halfway, like, okay, that's all it took for you to know, okay, you're on the right track. Which is interesting. Teachers sometimes may or may not feel like, they need to take on a whole different persona, but man, just taking an interest in kids, and their success can just they know when you care. Kids know when you care, right? They know when you care about them.
They
So
absolutely know when you care, and they know when, I've got two boys and they've graduated college now, but when they were in high school, I would ask them, who's your favorite teacher and why? And who's your least favorite teacher and why? And the favorite teacher would always come back. The why would be about they talk to me, they ask me questions, they pat me on the back or give me a high five. They act interested in my life outside of school. The people that were their least favorite teachers were the ones who never made eye contact, didn't talk to them, didn't engage with them in any way. And I don't believe that it was because the teacher didn't like them. It was just they were attending to other things, and they didn't realize that these two kids that were going to be good no matter how you treated them. They didn't. It was just a compliance thing, and you can't you can't allow compliance in a classroom to say that's they're doing a great job in there, because there's a lot of kids that'll comply with anybody, but you've really got to connect with them to make that difference.
yeah, that's a great point because the focus in that area, the focus on because we all have so much going on, right? But there's a lot going on in the world in general. There's a lot going on in life, and having that focus is so critical. Well, awesome. I know we're running short on t time here. We've ran over a little bit. Just last question before we close out. What's coming up on the horizon for your district that maybe the community or maybe our listeners or potential community members in the future could be excited about?
Well, just about a year ago, April 1st of last year, we passed the largest bond in our district, which was about 120 million. We're going to build two schools, one elementary and one intermediate at the same time. We've got a lot of other projects on there too, a lot of exciting projects, but we're putting turf on all the playgrounds for the elementary schools. It's an exciting time to be a Piedmont Wildcat, and we've got a community that is so supportive of what we do. We passed that bond with 81% approval rate. So great things. We're working hard on our academics. Our academics are good. They're going to be better. They're moving forward. We expect great things from our our kids and our teachers, and it's a great place to be.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for your time today. I know you're a very
Thank
busy
you.
man. All right. Well, there we have it. Another great interview. Before we close out, first, I want to thank all of our listeners for tuning in and also want to give one final shout out to our sponsor. Funding is such a critical piece when it comes to public education. So if you have a district that needs unrestricted funds, feel free to reach out to our sponsor, Ideal Impact. And for those that have been tuning in, stay tuned for future episodes of the Educational Leadership Podcast.